करिए आदेश कुछ।
नमस्कार मित्रों, आप सबों का हार्दिक अभिनंदन है। क्षमा चाहूंगा 30-31 मिनट विलंब से आपका ये बहुत ही परिचित और आपके लाइक का ये चैनल आपके बीच में आया है। आज राष्ट्रीय विमर्श के 9वें अंक में आप सभी का हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूं। आज के हमारे जो मुख्य अतिथि हैं वो हैं आदरणीय रघुवीर शरण रेछारिया जी। रघुवीर शरण रेछारिया ने माखनलाल यूनिवर्सिटी से बैचलर इन जर्नलिज्म किया 1996 में, और उसके बाद वहीं से उन्होंने मास्टर इन ब्रॉडकास्ट जर्नलिज्म किया और 2000 से एबीपी न्यूज दिल्ली में एक सीनियर प्रोड्यूसर के पद पर हैं। अभी पुनः उनका जो है पदोन्नति उनकी हुई है। अब पद नाम मुझे नहीं मालूम है, लेकिन वो बहुत ही प्रभावी से वीडियो एडिटिंग और प्रोड्यूसिंग का काम करते हैं। आपकी समझ सामाजिक चेतना के साथ साथ जुड़ी हुई है। आप और हमारे दोनों के बहुत ही आत्मीय परिचित व्यक्ति आदरणीय श्री विवेकानंद झा जी। आप एक ख्यातिलब्ध लेखक हैं। आपने अंग्रेजी के कई महान पुस्तकों की रचना की है और आप हमारे दृष्टि टॉक्स के चैनल पर हमारी समीक्षा के लिए सदैव उपलब्ध रहते हैं। मैंने आदरणीय झा साहब से निवेदन किया कि हम लोगों के बातचीत में विलंब हो रहा है और हमारे जो आदरणीय अतिथि हैं उनको कुछ तकनीकी कारणों से वो जुड़ नहीं पा रहे हैं। फिर से उनको जुड़ने का आग्रह किया गया है। तो इस बीच में हम और विवेकानंद जी के बीच उसी राष्ट्रीय विमर्श की इस 9वें अंक की कड़ी को आगे की ओर ले चलने के लिए कुछ प्रश्न जो अभी ज्वलंत हैं उस पर हम राय जानना चाहेंगे। यूं तो कई प्रश्न हमारे जीवन में आते हैं और हमने ये निश्चय किया है कि राष्ट्रीयता शब्द जो है वो भारतीय जीवन में सनातन परंपराओं के साथ जुड़ी हुई तथ्य है। राष्ट्रीयता के चिंतन में लगने वाले हमारे लाखों मनीषियों ऋषियों के साथ साथ इस देश के कई लाख स्कूल उसमें जुड़े हुए। ये चेतना राष्ट्र के संरक्षण, संवर्धन, संपोषण के क्षेत्र में बहुत ही ताकतवर रूप से काम करती है। ऐसे ही चेतना के धारक हैं आदरणीय विवेकानंद। विवेकानंद जी से ये समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि राष्ट्रीयता की अभी वर्तमान दिशा दशा क्या है, ये किस दिशा की ओर मुड़ रही है। क्योंकि वैश्विक पटल पर भारत के इमेज को चाहे वो मीडिया के जरिए हो, चाहे डाटा के जरिए हो, चाहे जैसे भी हो, वो तो हम लोग ये समझने की कोशिश करते हैं तो एक भावपूर्ण गौरव उत्पन्न होता है कि भारत की भी पहचान दुनिया के देशों में एक प्रतिष्ठित राष्ट्र के रूप में हो रहा है। लेकिन आंतरिकता में जो हमारी भौगोलिक स्थिति है, उस भौगोलिक स्थिति की जो वेदना है, उसका जो कष्ट है, उसमें जो रहने वाले नागरिक हैं, उन सभी नागरिक की जो पीड़ा है, जो खासकर राष्ट्रीय तत्व के साथ जुड़कर रहने वाले लोग हैं, उनके अंदर एक एक विचित्र किस्म की उकलाहट है। वो ये समझ नहीं पा रहे हैं कि ये रास्ता इस देश के लिए कहाँ जाएगा। इसीलिए इस राष्ट्रीय विमर्श की आवश्यकता को महसूस करते हुए समझते हैं ये राष्ट्रीयता की दिशा दशा क्या है। आदरणीय विवेकानंद।
Thanks a lot, Pramod ji, for inviting me to express my opinion. I greet all the viewers who are logging in with this particular channel with us, and those who will eventually view this particular video. I very much sought the permission of Sri Pramod ji that I should respond in English language, because I only keep on responding or speaking mostly in English, because that exactly is what I do. It has been my lingua franca, and of course my mode of communication. My dear viewers, as of course what Pramodji says, I am absolutely in agreement with him, both in letter as well as in spirit, because even though we have got, an overall international or a global image of India, or a global image of India evolving as a strong power, a strong regional power, South Asian regional power. The power is of course on the horizon. There is no denying the fact. And of course, this is what Prime Minister, with all his global image, is trying to do justice to India's global image. There is no denying the fact. But at the same time, what Pramodji says, he speaks about the inherent contradiction, which has become a part and parcel of our life today. That is the domestic contradiction. And of course, when we see this domestic contradiction, of course, what we find, the very root of this domestic contradiction traces its genesis, from the, since independence time. Because in the post-independence phase, the very the very trajectory that our then leaders adopted for the nation, indeed, indeed appears to have gone in disarray. So much so that, if with the benefits of hindsight, we see that the very trajectory being chosen or selected for the national growth story, or for the nation's eventual journey in the post-independence phase, was definitely erroneous and absolutely unwarranted. Because there has been a systematic effort and a systematic attempt to institutionalize an anti-Hindu mindset. And anti-Hindu mindset means this is anti-national mindset, because Hindu nationalism is akin to that of Indian nationalism. But ironically, what we see indeed comes to us as a bird from blue. Because see the tragedy, the travesty of the travesty of Bharatiyata, that was apparent since our nation began its journey from 1947 onward. You see, those the glory of Bharat Barsha, the icons of Bharat Barsha, the national identity of Bharat Barsha, Lord Sri Ram, Maryada Purushottam, whose image was was painted by Sri Nandalal Bose. Apart from Lord Sri Ram, even the images of Lord Sri Krishna, great Adi Sankaracharya, and other Yug Purush or great men that were painted by Sri Nandalalji, and they formed the building block of our constitution. All that were systematically removed from the pages of constitution, and this was the biggest irony. I would consider it to be really a genuine irony, because India's overall nationalistic values, which is represented by Maryada Purushottam Lord Sri Ram, was given a decent burial when India, in that is independent India, chose to relegate Bharat to the back burner, and try to pretend itself as a newly formed nation, which was absolutely sequestered from its very moorings. And you see the tragedy which happened ever since independence continues its trajectory even today, and that is, adequately apparent or visible in Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Joro mission. See, this man, he had once again undermined Bir Savarkar while his possession has entered into Maharashtra, calling Bir Savarkar as a traitor. Even in Kerala, now he has, of course, after entering Maharashtra, he had described Bir Savarkar as, as Mafi Bir. But in Kerala, he had outrightly designated with great Veer Savarkar as a traitor. Just see the irony of his very mission of so-called Bharat Jodo. When you are embarking on your mission to, for unifying the so-called divided India, then how come you glorify your great grandfather Jawaharlal Nehru, and at the same time you try to excoriate, you try to undermine the another great person who was instrumental behind the rise of nationalistic movement in the country, because it was the Veer Savarkar's book, the India's first war of independence, which was the trigger behind inspiring so many great patriots like Bhagat Singh ji, like even Gadar movement was inspired by the book written by Veer Savarkar. It had inspired Bhagat, the Lala Hardayal of Gadar movement, and Gadar movement was the consequence of the book written by Veer Savarkar. And even much later, Veer Savarkar's book was a trigger behind inspiration of all those freedom fighters who took up the cudgel to fight for the freedom of this nation. But all these took the back seat. See how Rahul Gandhi, it's so boldly and rather so audaciously, so brazenly, that it would be the most appropriate word, so brazenly he poo-poos great Veer Savarkar. He just seeks to undermine him, berate him, belittle him the best way as he can, and that he does it openly before 1.40 billion people of this country. And see, what was the mistake of Veer Savarkar? What were the wrongs that he had done? He had done no wrongs. He had committed no mistake. He had just only sought to sow what was ahead for the Hindu community. He was the person who suggested that Muslims and Hindus after Jinnah too believed, and Jinnah sought to carve out Pakistan on this particular ground, that Hindus and Muslims were two different nations. Same thing was reiterated by Veer Savarkar too, when he said that Hindu and Muslims are two different nations. They cannot think of converging at one point. And even though if they converge, that would be just for a momentary. It would be momentary. It would be transient. It can never have a permanence in itself. So for showing a radiant path for Hindu community, that man has been ironically or paradoxically, I would say, he has been targeted by the Congress party and its leader, even brazenly designating the great Savarkar as a traitor. So you can well understand, if we Hindus, we Indians, if we take all his remarks lying down, that means we all are as good as dead. So I am giving a clarion call from this particular podium that we should now wake up. We should be the awakened citizens of Bharat Barsha, and we have to ensure that such censorious remarks, such as scathing criticisms against our own iconic figures can never be tolerated by the awakened citizens of this country. Because Veer Savarkar was a great man, an iconic figure. Pramodji, I would like to quote the speech of the former Prime Minister Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, in the year 2006, while delivering a speech on the birth anniversary of great Veer Savarkar. I recall Atal Bihari Vajpayee, just comparing Veer Savarkar with that of an ocean, whereas he had the modesty of dubbing himself or designating himself as a mere drop of that ocean. So you can well understand the overall importance and significance of that of Veer Savarkar. But the tragedy of this nationalism of this country has been that after independence, the leadership and had gone into the very, very wrong hands. Those people who superimposed the so-called bogus and preposterous concept of secularism upon Indian people, upon the trusting Indians, forgetting the fact that secularism did not apply to Indians. It was an exotic concept, an alien concept, which was not meant, which was alien for this country. Because India means Hindu nationalism. And see the grace and the compassion of Hindus, because they embraced Muslim brothers, after partition, as their, as the equal stakeholders. Hindus never discriminated, never expressed any resentment that why after the partition of United India and after the creation of Pakistan next door as an Islamic republic, Islamic nation, why India should not be a Hindu nation. Hindus never, bothered, never showed any sort of concern. They never thought that they were embracing their Muslim brothers, and after decades, they will face such a great, a cataclysmic sort of tragedy. Because as Muslim population will grow, they, all these sort of chaos, chaos will be unfolded, or chaos will be unleashed upon the trusted Hindus in this particular country. So you can well understand that it is now, even now, if the Hindus continue to hibernate, if the Hindu consciousness continues to hibernate as it has been doing all along, I'm sure it will be a lost cause for Hindus. At the same time, my exhortation upon the Muslim brethren is this, that my dear Muslim brothers, you too are the bona fide citizens of India, and Hindus have embraced you, taken you, Mother India took you to her bosom. This is what you also have to take cognizance of. You also have to recognize this fact, and you have to treat, treat Hindus, as such a great community which had adopted you as their brothers. So this is the fact they have to consider, and only if they consider, then they can come to the mainstream of the nationalism. That is what is Hindu nationalism, which encompasses not only the so-called Hindu community, but it encompasses every single stakeholder of this republic. So this is what exactly is an answer to your question, Pramodji.
Yes, thank you, sir. You are elaborating very much. आपने इस बात को बहुत ही स्पष्टता से रखा, और चिंता इस बात की रहती है ना, देखिए, सावरकर जैसे लोगों को डिमाइन करना, ये एक पॉलिसीज के तहत की जा रही है। इस देश की संस्कृति को बिगाड़ना, इस देश के संस्कारों में अलग अलग टेस्ट को घोलना, और एक नए लोग उभर कर आए हैं और उनको हिंदू के एक सेक्शन को लेकर के और फिर वो उनके साथ जोड़ना, और वो उसमें देश के संविधान के निर्माता बाबा भीमराव अम्बेडकर जी को मैंने एक सेंट्रल हिसाब से उनको ग्लोबलाइज करके और उनके नाम का इस्तेमाल करके मीम और भीम करके दो संगठन अलग करना है। और इन दोनों ने संगठन बनाने के बाद ये कहा कि भाई हम और तुम तो भाई भाई हैं। तो यानी सत्ता के, और उनको कैलकुलेशन भी बताया जाता, तो सत्ता के करीब आने के लिए इनको तोड़ने की कोशिश की जा रही, और उनके मन में जो छत्रप है, जो राज्यों के छत्रप हैं, जो जातीय समुदायों के नेता हैं, वो उनको भी सत्ता में बने रहना है। इसलिए वो क्या करते हैं कि वो इनकी बातों का समर्थन करते हैं या उसको सुलगाते हैं। तो ये सारी परिस्थितियों का जो निर्माण हुआ है, इस निर्माण में जो कुछ संस्थाएं हैं और कुछ और संगठन के लोग हैं जो लोगों को जागृत करने का एक प्रयास कर रहे हैं, या आप कह सकते हैं कि उनका ऐसा मानना है कि हम जागृत कर रहे हैं। अब यहाँ पर एक बहुत गंभीर प्रश्न खड़ा होता है कि इतने ज्यादा जागृति के बाद भी शिक्षा में और चिकित्सा में, क्षेत्रों में, इन सभी जगहों पे हमें ये देखने को मिलता है कि भारतीय राष्ट्रीयता में जो है सो कहीं ना कहीं एक उसका पारा नीचे की ओर आ गया है। तो आप इस पर क्या समझते हैं? राष्ट्रीयता जो है वो चरित्र में दिखना चाहिए या केवल भाषा में या व्यवहार में नहीं आना चाहिए? केवल भाषा में रहनी चाहिए, व्यवहार में नहीं आना चाहिए? क्या पहले भी ऐसा ही था जैसा आज दिखता है?
Pramodji, you have broached a very important issue. And in order to understand the very issue that you have broached right now, we have to go back in the past. In the wake of partition of United India, there was a particular gentleman from so-called, I wouldn't say, but that is from, say, those at the bottom of the social pyramid, who are exactly referred to as people from lower caste. Mr. Mandal had gone to Pakistan and he was appointed as the law minister of Pakistan. But after a few years, he had to return back to India. And he wrote a very important book. And he had already described his bitter experience in Pakistan. And he even elaborated the very reason for his return to India. Because he felt himself being cheated, deceived when he went to, because just like what you have said, Bhim and Meme, he was also under the impression that if I would go to Pakistan, I would get all sort of respect and dignity and everything. So under that impression, and you can say nursing all those shots of illusion, when he went to Pakistan, and even when he was appointed as the law minister, but barely after a few years, he had so much bitter experience that he could not sustain there in Pakistan. He had to run back to India. And then when he wrote his book, and the book, he has shared all his bitter experience and has strictly warned. Mind you, he has strictly warned the people of his community that never ever fall in trap.
नहीं,
Because this is
ये बात तो बाबा राव भीमराव अंबेडकर जी ने अपनी पुस्तक में भी लिखी है, बहुत साफ सुथरी भाषा में लिखी है।
yes,
लेकिन सवाल यहाँ ये खड़ा, ये बहुत ही वैलिड क्वेश्चन माने या ना माने, सवाल ये खड़ा हो रहा है कि अपने ही बीच के लोगों ने जिनको हम लोगों ने अपने यहाँ बड़े सम्मान से, ये तो वो लोग नहीं है जो जाना चाहते थे, इन लोगों ने तो विभाजन का वोटिंग किया था। जिन लोगों ने विभाजन के लिए वोटिंग नहीं किया था वो लोग बलूचिस्तान में है, सिंध में है, पाकिस्तान में है, बांग्लादेश में। और जिन लोगों ने पार्टीशन को सपोर्ट किया था वो सारे लोग भारत में। इसीलिए ये नारा बहुत पहले से ही लगा रहे हैं कि हंस के लिया, लड़ के लिया पाकिस्तान, हंस के लेंगे हिंदुस्तान। तो ये बात जो पब्लिक डोमेन में है, तो आखिर यहीं से एक प्रश्न खड़ा होता है कि आखिर हमारी राष्ट्रीयता को क्या हो गया है? हम इस तरह से क्यों सोच रहे हैं? इसमें किसकी गलती आप मानते हैं? नेताओं की, जनता की, सत्ता की, या हमारे पीछे कोई एक बहुत गंभीर रणनीति है, या हमारे पीछे एक बहुत ही गंभीर कोई चाल बहुत लंबे समय से चली जा रही है जिसको हम लोग नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं, या हम जिनको अपना नेता मानते हैं वो नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं?
Pramod ji, in course of one of the important debates in the past, I had already referred to a very important definition of politics given by the architect of cabinet mission plan, Sir Stafford Cripps. Sir Stafford Cripps had defined politics as the means of getting vote from as a means of getting money from the rich and vote from the poor, while promising to protect each from the other. So that particular definition was as much applicable at that point in time when that particular definition was actually given, as it is as much feasible even in contemporary times today. all this sort of politics, as what you have been alluding to, comes on account of weaknesses within us. How come you blame the politicians? Because they are to exploit our weaknesses. So it is the blame should straightaway come to us Indians, because there are so many decisive factors like caste, creed, which has kept us divided along our caste lines. And this has given an opportunity for the politicians to exploit our differences. If, say, for example, if we go back even millennia ago, the caste factor was really, it had created havoc on the society. And then Gautama Buddha was born, because when the caste was at the pedestal, the caste was really, means was tormenting the society. Gautama Buddha was born to show the equality, the path of equality for all humanity, for all human beings. But unfortunately, we continued with the same trend, and caste became an institutionalized trend in our polity. And it is because of this caste factor which continued to widen the rift among the people, that only became that continued to fester in the polity. And after independence, it became a fodder for the politicians to exploit our differences as much as they could. And that is the reason they have begun, they have begun targeting upper caste people, especially Brahmins, for all the maladies afflicting the society. Because of the past, when the Brahmins were purportedly committed atrocities upon so-called lower class people, so that has begun resonating, or that has begun, that has been magnified by the politicians, especially for those from the bottom of the social pyramid, that look, we continue to be at the bottom of the social pyramid because of the upper caste people, especially Brahmins, whose vested interest was to keep us deprived forever. And that created a big fissure within the society, which found manifestation in in all these sort of political parties which you have just named, like MIM, Beam, and all that. Because these people now have come to develop a particular concept, or have come to believe in a particular concept, that if those at the bottom of the social pyramid, even though in Hindu fold, if they can be broken away from Hindus, obviously Hindus will become much weaker. They will be back, they will stand battered. And consequently, if this is going to materialize, then of course Muslims and so-called those at the bottom in Hindus, if they can join hands, then India will become theirs. This is a very clever, means very well thought out strategy upon which this particular group has been working for decades. Like Ambedkarji's grandson, like Awasi. We know the history of Asauddin Awasi, because his grandfather, we all know about Qasim Rajvi, who was the leader of Rajakars. And then where he was imprisoned, and then he was set free on a condition that if he went to Pakistan, he would be pardoned. So Qasim Rajvi, before leaving for Pakistan, had gone to Hyderabad, and there he had met Awasuddin, Awasi's grandfather, and just made him the president of that AIMIM party, with a solitary agenda, that is to convert India into another Pakistan, into another Islamic nation. That was the solitary agenda of Qasim Rajvi. And when he handed over the mantle of leadership, to leadership upon the grandfather of Awasi, so he had given him a clear instruction, a clear roadmap as to how to gradually convert India into another Islamic nation. So they are working upon a particular plan. And we Hindus continue to hibernate without realizing the menace, which is very much apparent to all of us. Yet, we continue to hibernate, we continue to ignore the massive cataclysm which is going to unfold before us anytime in future, but still see our own debilitate the sort of debilitation which has come to symbolize the Hindu community is all because of Hindus' eternal pusillanimity. Hindus are considered to be cowards. This is what so-called Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi had said, that Hindus are cowards and Muslims are bullies. So this has become our perpetual characteristic, our perennial characteristics. And this is where we have to set it off. You see, Pramodji, I was very surprised to see that Tushar Gandhi has been accompanying this Rahul Gandhi, and his statement, you see, the funniest, he also says that Savarkar was the killer of Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and therefore he was a traitor. See such a statement. Savarkar was the father of India's Hindu nationalism. He was the man. I consider him to be an icon of icons who showed the radiant path for Hindus. He was the man who tried to awaken the hibernating Hindu consciousness by telling them that be alert, be on guard, because you have been cheated of your own independent nation. See the misfortune of Hindus, Pramodji, that we are the only community on earth. Hindu race is the only community on earth which has no land, which has no country of its own. And India, Bharat Varsha, which was their nation, how it is getting alienated when India was formed. Independent India came into existence, which slowly and gradually started getting itself distanced from that of the ancient Bharat, that of the, you can say, the glory of Bharat Varsha. So this is what is the tragedy.
One thing, sir, with due respect, दो तीन बातें जो मुझे कई बार उन बातों पर आत्मचिंतन करना पड़ता है कि समाज को ये बताया जाता है कि अगड़ी जाति के लोग पिछड़ी जाति या निचली जाति के लोगों का शोषण करते हैं, और इसीलिए आरक्षण की जो स्थिति है उसको दिन प्रतिदिन हर एक सरकार अपने अनुसार अपनी सुविधा और वोटिंग संख्या के हिसाब से उसको बढ़ाती, और कई जातियां और प्रजातियां SC ST में OBC में जाने के लिए आवेदन कर चुकी। मेरी बात आप तक जा रही है? अब यहाँ पर ये मामला है कि यदि हिंदुत्व के लिए आपको इतनी चिंता है और ब्राह्मण और अग्री जाति के लोगों ने इतना डिप्राइव्ड करा है सब लोगों को, तो इसका कोई प्रमाण या डाटा दिए जाने चाहिए ना सर। केवल ये डिस्कोर्स या ये एक नैरेटिव सेट कर दिया जाए तो ये कितना उचित है। जितनी आहुतियां इस राष्ट्र को रक्षा करने के लिए और जितना खोज और जितना संभ्रांत बनाने का प्रयास है, वो संसाधन में सबकी हिस्सेदारी थी। कोई नहीं कह सकता है समाज का निचली पंक्ति में हो या ऊपर के पंक्ति में हो, समाज में सारे लोगों की हिस्सेदारी थी और बराबर की हिस्सेदारी थी। ये डिप्राइव बनाने वाली बात क्या है? किसने डिप्राइव बनाया है? डिप्राइव किसी ने नहीं बनाया है। जब आपके ऊपर आक्रमण हुआ और आपको मुगलों से लेकर के आप हूं कुषाण सुंग उसके पास तक चले जाइए, उसके बाद से जब आक्रमण हुआ तब ये विभेदकारी नीति लोग अपने ऊपर थोपना शुरू किए और फिर इसमें अलग अलग डिफिनेशंस क्रिएट किए गए। मंदिरों का कॉन्सेप्ट कहाँ था? जो छोटे छोटे गांवों में मंदिर है और ये जो हल्ला उठाया जाता है कि यहाँ नहीं घुसने देता है, वहां नहीं घुसने देता है, मंदिरों का निर्माण निचली जाति के यहाँ से मिट्टी लाए हुए कहीं सुने हैं कि होता है? वो शुद्ध मंदिर माना जाता है? उनकी भागीदारी मिलती है उसमें। कलश यात्रा में भागीदारी, जो सनातन सिद्ध मंदिर है। अब कोई अपने अहंकार के लिए मंदिर बनाने लगा है, कोई अपनी ऊर्जा को समेटने के लिए, या कोई अपनी दुकान चलाने के लिए मंदिर बनाने लगा है, तब तो फिर अलग बात है।
Pramod ji,
हम्म।
you have raised a very important question. Of course, Brahmin community has always been on the forefront of saving the nation. Whereas the allegations which continues to be raised against Brahmins, or the accusations which continue to be raised against Brahmins, may be justifiable, to some extent in a very sporadic ways. But the fact too cannot be glossed over, far less, rejected, is the fact that Brahmins always, when the social, when the society was on the verge of destruction, society was on the verge of catastrophe, it was the Brahmin community which invariably and inevitably came to the rescue of the entire society. You take the case of Chanakya. When Ghanananda or Nanda dynasty was almost, was unleashing all sorts of atrocities upon the people, was trying to create havoc on the Magadha kingdom. Chanakya was the person who rose in revolt or in rebellion against the Ghanananda dynasty, with the help of Chandragupta Maurya. And we all know the story that how Chanakya, as India's greatest political thinker or political strategist ever, had sought to enforce the rule of law in the entire geographical entity of Chandragupta Maurya's regime. Take the case of even later, even in the post-independence India, if we think about, you take the case of P.V. Narasimha Rao, how India, none of his predecessors ever summed up the courage to form a direct diplomatic relationship with Israel. But it was Narasimha Rao, again a Brahmin prime minister, who had the audacity to strike a close diplomatic relationship with that of Israel. Because Narasimha Rao had that vision. He knew that Israel and India both were confronting the similar ideological problems. And therefore, India and Israel has a natural alliance, and that should be given a tangible shape. And therefore, when Yasir Arafat had visited New Delhi, see the willingness of Narasimha Rao, he convinced Arafat that if India were to open its diplomatic mission in Tel Aviv is the capital city of Israel, then India would be able to help the Palestinians in finding some sort of rapprochement with that of Israel. And Yasir Arafat was absolutely convinced by the poignant logic which was advanced by Narasimha Rao, and diplomatic relationship for the first time came into existence or on the front between India and Israel. So he was also a Brahmin. Take the case of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, India's greatest prime minister to my perception thus far. He had a strategic vision. He was a statesman prime minister. Despite Pakistan sabotaging him time and time again, Mr. Vajpayee never lost his hope and continued to build up a rapport and rapprochement with Pakistan, despite being bruised time and time again. Take the case of, Kandahar fiasco, where ISI was involved. Take the case of, the Kargil war. But still, Vajpayee continued to build up the relationship with Pakistan. Just recall his very visionary statement, a very famous statement, that we can change history, but we cannot change geography. So, in the very context of your very important question, I'm trying to put it in this way, that whereas a fraction of Brahmins can be faulted for their prejudices, but to lay blame at the door of the entire Brahmins, a Brahminical class, is tantamount to doing an absolute injustice to the overall Brahmin community. Brahmins are the thinkers. Brahmins are the nationalists par excellence. They are the people who have always been on guard for the security and for the stability of this geographical entity of Bharat Barsha. So therefore, these people know, those who are in favor of meme and beam, they know that it is a Brahmin, awakened class of this Bharat Barsha who is going to be the biggest challenger to them. Because if they are with a divisive tendency, they are the Fissiparas forces, they are the separatists, they are thinking of once again fragmenting India or converting India into an Islamic nation. So they know in the heart of their hearts, they realize this fact that until unless Brahmins are being subdued, the Brahmins are being actually suppressed, they have no chance of attaining their malicious propaganda, their malicious objective, or their malafide intention. So therefore, they want to create a big pressure upon Brahminical class so that the Brahmins should feel, subdued. Brahmins should feel mortified. And consequently, if Brahmins are lying, if the Brahmins are, not on the forefront of confronting these anti-national forces, they will have an open field and they will easily capture this particular country. So that is the try to understand the underlying cause behind targeting Brahmins, because Brahmins are their biggest stumbling block. They can never.
ये जो आप कह रहे हैं कि ब्राह्मण जो है सो टारगेट बनता है, लेकिन देखने में तो ये आता है सर जी, ब्राह्मण केवल उनके टारगेट में नहीं है, तो सत्ता के टारगेट में भी है। सरकार भी इसको पिछले 77 वर्षों से धीरे धीरे मार्जिनलाइज कर रही है, इनको आरक्षण देती नहीं है, इनके बच्चों को स्कूल से लेकर के प्रमोशन तक कहीं कोई आरक्षण नहीं है। जो सरकारी सुविधाएं बहुत तेजी से गांव में जाती है वो ब्राह्मणों के क्लास में नहीं है। तो आप तो इकोनॉमिकली, एकेडमिकली और पिछले 70 साल में तो चूर चूर कर दिए, खत्म कर दिए उस क्लास को। क्लास तो बचा नहीं है। आप आरोप लगा लगा करके संरक्षण में उस पर तो कोई आप कुछ बचा ही नहीं है उसके पास। अब जो संघर्ष कर रहा है अलग अलग शहरों में, वहां संघर्ष की स्थिति में ये है कि यदि वो किसी नौकरी में है तो ठीक है, अपना व्यक्तिगत कोई संवाद कार्यक्रम या कुछ करता है, लिखता है, पढ़ता है तो ठीक है, अदरवाइज उसका कोई किसी डिस्ट्रिक्ट टाउन में कहीं कोई पिछलगुआ के अलावा कुछ नहीं माना जाएगा। तो आप एक बात बताइए कि जहां सामाजिक रूप से, वैचारिक रूप से, व्यवहारिक रूप से सभी संदर्भों में इस वर्ग की स्थिति थोड़ी घटी है या बढ़ रही है?
Pramod ji, you have a valid reason. As I already said, it would be taken as a duplication of my answer that I already gave you, that Brahmins are the thinking class, they are the intellectuals, they constitute the intelligentsia class of the nation. And all politicians or political parties or the ruling parties, government, they are overwhelmingly concerned about intelligentsia class. They know that if intelligentsia class stand as dissidents, or they stand as, they resent the government's actions or government's decisions or government's policies, then the government risk, a large movement or some sort of, the collective movement from the people of India. So you try to test the pages of history, and you would see that in every event during monarchy, which were institutionalized in the Jambu Dwipa I'm talking about the erstwhile Bharat Barsha, which was referred to as Jambu Dipa. Even you would see that Brahmins or the intelligentsia were the prime target. Chanakya's father, Vishnugupta's father, was taken to custody by Ghanananda, and he was killed in the custody because he was a great intellectual of his time and era. So the same trend has continued since millennia and millennia, where Brahmins or intellectuals or intelligentsia class has always been the target of the government or the ruling class of people. So the same thing continues to happen, and especially in a democracy where majority rule is being institutionalized. Brahmins are the microscopic section of the people, and consequently, they are very much at the receiving end. Who bothers for the Brahmins vote? And of course, they bother. See, in UP, 11% of population, Brahmins constitute or comprise of 11% of total population, and there Brahmins very much count. But if you talk about the overall national scenario, Brahmins are the handful of people. And therefore, in the democracy, which goes by the vote pattern or the voting mechanism, obviously Brahmins do not count in the eyes of this electoral politics. That is why Brahmins have been at the receiving end. But all said and done, I would like to inform you, and through you to all the esteemed viewers of this particular channel who are viewing this program and who eventually will view this program, that you can target Brahmins, but you can never finish the intelligentsia, because they provide the intellectual capital to the nation. And if you think of, if you even think of all those adverse steps to silence the intelligentsia class, that is simply not possible in a democracy. Of course, we have seen in case of dictatorial regimes, in case of autocrats like Stalin, Hitler, they all targeted their intelligentsia class in their own countries. In India, we of course, time and time again, we have been witnessing the same trend. But being in a democracy where the intellectual thought process can bring about a change in government, constant targeting of Brahmins who form part and parcel of intelligentsia of this country is simply untenable. It is simply impragmatic. It is simply impractical. It cannot happen, because Brahmins are the thought givers to the nation. And therefore, all those who are planning or conspiring against the Brahmin class by thinking of fragmenting this republic yet again, they will finally end up with foot in their mouth or in their mouths, because Brahmins are the nationalists to their core. They are the patriots to their core. Take the case of Madan Mohan Malviya ji. Take the case of Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. Take the case of Dr. Girija Shankar Vajpayee ji. They have been the great nationalists, and they got the all sort of applause and all sorts of appreciation from Dr. Hedgewar ji. Yes, means there is countless people.
Golwalkar ji.
Golwalkar. We cannot count them in our fingers, because Brahmins only think about the nation. Nation comes to them, as a first priority. You see, Pramod ji, I have been thinking, day in and day out about the very stability of our nation. I get nothing from, by way of any material reward or anything, but I think about this Bharat Varsha, because this Punya Bhumi has been the Punya Bhumi of Sanatanis. And who are Sanatanis? Every single Indian who has a respect for Mother Bharati, who bows reverentially before Mother Bharati, they are Sanatanis. And therefore, you cannot think of neutralizing or suppressing the inmost urge, nationalism You have
बोलिए
muted
बोलिए।
it. Mute.
हम नहीं म्यूट किए हैं, हम नहीं किए हैं, नहीं हम नहीं किए हैं।
No, but from my side it's okay. Please come and see. From my, is my voice audible to you?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
So what just to sum it up, or rather, in short, what my submission would be that Brahminical class, despite errors and omissions, means omissions, despite omissions and commissions, because I cannot think of exonerating Brahmins from various omissions and commissions in the past and even in the contemporary times, because there are always exceptions. So despite some sort of adverse actions on the part of handful of Brahmins by and large remain the nationalists to their core. Nation comes first to them. What Honorable Prime Minister says, it is a Brahmin community who have adopted this. Brahmins have adopted this as their life's mission and vision. India first, nation first. So all these people may have vested interest in attacking Brahmins, in assaulting Brahmins, in targeting Brahmins, but the fact remains that Brahmins are nationalists to the core, of course, barring exceptions. And all these so-called fractured people who constitute MIM and BIM, they cannot think of eliminating the Brahmin class, because Brahmins are they are the exponent of the nationalistic expression of this great republic. Thank you, Pramod ji.
थैंक यू वेरी मच। अब आज हमारे गेस्ट को समय नहीं मिला, कोई बात नहीं, फिर कभी दूसरी मुलाकात में उनसे बातचीत होगी। आज का ये संवाद आप तक पहुंचाने का हमने एक प्रयास किया है। हमारे मन में किसी वर्ग, समुदाय, भाषा, क्षेत्र के लिए कोई ऐसे विचार नहीं है। यह केवल ये समझने का एक मात्र जरिया है कि हम ये जानने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि ये राष्ट्र जिसकी चेतना ऋग्वेद में भी है, वहां भी कहते हैं राष्ट्रम इदम न मम इदम राष्ट्राय स्वाहा का मंत्र दिया था गोलवरकर जी। इसलिए यह वास्तविकता है कि यदि आप अपने राष्ट्र को, जैसा कि आदरणीय विवेकानंद जी ने कहा, यदि आप अपने राष्ट्र को अपनी माता मानते हैं, जैसा कि सभी आख्यानों में है कि पुत्रो हम पृथ्व्या, हम पृथ्वी के पुत्र हैं, तो इसलिए माता भूमो पुत्रो हम पृथ्व्या, तो इसलिए हमारे यहाँ तो पृथ्वी को माँ के स्वरूप में माना जाता है। और जो लोग इस बात के साक्षी हैं, उनमें इस चेतना का निश्चित रूप से एक नए चेतना को नई दिशा मिलेगी, जैसा कि आदरणीय विवेकानंद ने कहा है। हम इतना जरूर चाहते हैं कि एक बात निकले और फिर हम उस पर एक चिंतन करके, एक विमर्श करके, क्योंकि विमर्श ही एकमात्र रास्ता है, हम विमर्श करके एक नई दिशा की ओर, नई ताकत की ओर अपने राष्ट्र को ले चले। यही हम सबों की नीति रीति होनी चाहिए। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ आज के इस कार्यक्रम से मैं प्रमोद आपसे विदा लेना चाहता हूँ। फिर मिलेंगे अगले रविवार को हम सभी। आप शुभ रात्रि, नमस्कार, आप अपना ध्यान रखिए और जरा लाइक कर दीजिए, कमेंट कर दीजिए और पसंद करते हैं तो शेयर भी कर दीजिए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you.